The message arrived by radio in Morse code, fragmented, desperate, as if the fingers transmitting it no longer had enough strength to firmly press the key. American operators intercepted it in the Strait of Malacca in 1947. They had to repeat decoding several times. What they read made no sense. All officers, including the captain, are dead in the chart room and on the bridge. Possibly the entire crew is dead. There was a pause, a long pause full of static, meaning the operator on the other side was no longer mentally present. Then, in dots and dashes, the last transmission, "I die," and then silence. The Americans decoded it, hands stopping in midair. The Strait of Malacca in 1947 was one of the busiest shipping lanes, a strip of water for a vast Pacific and Indian Ocean trade. Post-World War II, it was a place where the chaos of the period still left its mark. Ships not in records, cargoes not on manifests. Routes made no commercial sense, but served those moving illicit goods. The Orang Medan was one such ship. Its origin, registration, even full name are unresolved, as if designed to leave no trace. The rescue ship Silver Star tracked the signal and located the Orang Medan adrift in a stretch of ocean that was extraordinarily calm that day. This detail would be irrelevant in any other circumstance, but it will become important. There had been no recent storm. No sea conditions would explain any conventional accident. The sea was flat, the wind was light, and the freighter floated intact. From a distance, it simply looked like a stopped ship, waiting for something or someone. The American rescue team boarded from the main deck. The first detail they registered, even before seeing any bodies, was the silence. Not the relative silence of a ship with engines off, but a different silence, with its own texture, instinctively recognized as wrong. The engines were stopped. There were no voices. There was no movement. Not even the sound of an animal, of a bird flying overhead. And then they found the first body. It was on the deck, on its back, arms outstretched to the sides with open hands and tense fingers, as if in the last moment of life that man had tried to push something away from himself. The eyes were open. The mouth was open. The expression on the face was something that the Silver Star sailors described with words that always returned to the same place. Pure panic, unadulterated terror, the face of someone who saw something and died seeing it. There was no blood, no visible wound, nothing to explain why that man was dead. There was more, much more. The team advanced through the ship and found the other crew members in exactly the same position, scattered across the deck, the chart room, the command bridge, the internal corridors. Each man was on his back. Each man had his arms in the same defensive posture, outstretched to ward off something. Each face was frozen in the same expression of absolute horror, eyes wide open, fixed on the ceiling or the sky above, as if all of them, at the exact moment of death, were looking at the same invisible thing hovering over them. None were in a resting position. None had tried to hide or protect themselves with physical barriers. None had been hit by a projectile or blade. There was no trace of a struggle, no sign that any man on board had tried to attack another. They simply died, all of them, standing or walking or operating the ship's instruments, and fell backward in the same state of fossilized terror. They found the ship's dog in an internal corridor. It was dead too, frozen in an alert posture, hind legs, snout wrinkled in a snarl that never came out, fur on the nape bristling. The animal had seen or sensed something and died facing it. The captain and navigation officers were in the chart room exactly as the radio message had described. The radio operator was still hunched over the equipment, fingers inches from the Morse key, as if he had stopped in the middle of a transmission. The American team circled the ship, trying to find any clue, any element out of place that would offer a starting point for an explanation. There was semi-prepared food in the galley. There was still coffee on the stove. All signs that death had arrived so suddenly, so totally that no one on board had had time to react in any way other than the instinctive terror of the last second. The most widely accepted theory among experts points to the cargo hold. The Orang Medan may have been transporting chemical weapons. Captured chemical weapons from Japanese and German arsenals at the end of World War II. Bottles and containers of nerve gas, sarin or thabun, lethal products that in minimal doses cause nervous system collapse, muscle paralysis, and death in seconds. In doses that do not kill immediately, cause pure neurological terror because they directly interfere with the brain. Circuits responsible for processing danger. A contained explosion in the hold. A leak in the weld of a poorly sealed container. Gas heavier than air descending through the ship's internal corridors. While the crew worked, and every man on board would have died exactly as the boat is described. Standing, moving, without time to understand what was happening, with the last conscious signal from the brain being an avalanche of chemical panic. Before the silence. But there is a problem with this theory. Several problems. In fact, nerve gas leaves characteristic physiological evidence in the bodies of victims. Muscle spasms that produce specific postures. Secretions in mucous membranes. Signs that the American sailors would have recognized and that were not described. Furthermore, if there had been enough nerve gas to kill the entire crew in the open air of the deck, the Silver Star team that boarded without protective equipment would have been affected immediately. They were not. They were on board long enough to circulate throughout the entire ship before anything forced them to leave. What forced them to leave was the smoke. It began to emerge from the cargo hold gradually. A dense, dark smoke that did not look like normal fire smoke. The Americans recognized the sign and began to evacuate. The speed with which the fire spread through the internal compartments was inconsistent with any naturally progressing fire, as if there was an accelerator or a highly unstable material that had waited for exactly that moment to ignite. The rescue team had barely returned to the Silver Star's boats when the Orang Medan exploded. The explosion was described as tremendous, disproportionate to the size of the ship, with a force that lifted entire sections of the hull into the air before everything disappeared into the water. In minutes, there was nothing on the ocean surface, but debris too small to contain any information. The Orang Medan, its bodies, its cargo, and its secrets sank together at a point in the Strait of Malacca that was never precisely located for a recovery operation. The investigations that followed encountered the same wall that all investigations into this case encounter. The ship did not verifiably exist in the official maritime records of any country. No insurer had issued a policy for it. No government claimed its crew. The reports of the Silver Star sailors were filed and referenced in nautical publications, but no official American, British, or Dutch investigation. The three powers with a naval presence in the Strait of Malacca during that period reached any formal conclusion. The case exists in historical records as a series of testimonies without an object, a ship without registration, a crew without a name, a death without cause, and an explosion that eliminated the only physical evidence. What looked at those men at the moment they died? What made each face contort in that final horror as their eyes turned upwards? Is a question that the ocean swallowed along with everything else. If you want to continue discovering the darkest mysteries that the sea and military history hide, subscribe to the Shadow IA channel now and activate the bell so you don't miss any videos. And before you go, comment below. Do you think they were victims of a lethal nerve gas leak from World War II? Or did something even more sinister attack that ship? Read the comments. Because in this type of mystery, the theories people create say a lot about how much we still don't know about what the deep ocean is capable of hiding.